Okay, so now we're finding the slope using an equation. So in order to do this, we need to know this equation here, y equals mx plus b. So I'm sure you've seen it before, where m is the slope. Y and x will just be y and x. They won't change generally. M is the slope and b is the y-intercept. So there will be numbers in for M and B. An example would be this. I'm just making up. The slope here is 3, not 3x. The slope is just 3. And my y-intercept is 5. Now, today we really focused on finding the slope here. And that is the number in front of the x once it is in this form. That's important. All right? So, hint, and by the way, this is stuff that you need to have written down in your notes. If you put your equation in slope-intercept form, then a coefficient is a number in front of the variable. So if I have y and there's no number in front of it, it's understood to be a 1. Or if I have negative x, the number in front or the coefficient is negative 1. The coefficient here is 3. So the coefficient is simply the number in front of the x is the slope. So if you put your equation in slope-intercept form, which is this, then the coefficient for x is the slope. X is not part of the slope, just the coefficient is part of the slope. So how to find the slope in any equation? Simple. Solve the equation for y, which simply means get y by itself. So that could be y equals or something equals y. As long as y is on whatever side it's on by itself, then the number that is with the x is your slope. So let's take a look at these examples here. All right. So my whole point is finding the slope, finding lowercase m. And so the way I could do that is take this equation, and if I remember correctly, all I have to do is put it in this form, and the number in front of the x becomes my slope. So hopefully right now you see that this equation does not look like this. This is called standard form. We want slope-intercept form. All right. Standard form is not this except for a couple of steps. Look at this. Notice that the x is on the right-hand side of the equal sign. Over here, the number with the x is on the left-hand side of the equal sign. Notice that the y is by itself, or there's a 1 in front of the y. There's a 4 in front of the y over here. So what we're going to do is take this equation and make it look like this by subtracting or removing our addition and subtraction first. What do you mean? This 4 is right next to the y. That means multiply. This is really 4 times y. But this, the further away you get from that, is addition or subtraction. You always remove your addition or subtraction first. And so I'm going to subtract 3x from both sides. Those go away to 0 or cancel each other out. And all I'm left with on the left-hand side is 4y. And since I'm going to put it in this order here, I'm going to say negative 3x plus 12. Now, truthfully, just off to the side, if you would have said 4y equals 12 minus 3x, you're not wrong if you write it like that, but I'm putting it in this form, so I'm just rearranging it a little bit. Now, it's not in this form yet because there's still a number in front of the y. And in order for me to get rid of multiplication, I have to divide. Now, when you divide everything, just like when you multiply. So everything gets divided by 4. That cancels out. I don't turn this into a decimal. I keep it like that. Plus 3, 12 divided by 4. Now, this whole thing is not my answer because all I'm asking you for is the slope. What is the slope in this? Once it looks like this equation, the slope is simply the number that's in front of or with your x. It's not 3/4 x or negative 3/4 x. It's negative 3/4 is your slope. All right? So I did all this algebra to get the y by itself. Therefore, it tells me what the slope is, which is the number in front of the x. Let's try it again on example 2. I need to take this equation and make it look like y equals mx plus b using algebra. That simply means get everything away from the y. So I see there's an x being added, and I say added because in front of it it's positive. You always look to the left. So the y is the one that's negative or being subtracted. I'm going to subtract the x from both sides. That goes to 0, and I'm left with negative y equals negative x plus 5. Y, I put the x first, and then the 5 is positive, so that's where the plus sign came from. Now ask yourself, are these in the same order? And you would say to yourself, they look like it, it's close, but the problem with this one is because this equation, the y is still negative. So I'm going to divide everything by -1 because that's really what's in front of that is a -1. And all that simply does is change every sign. Now, again, this equation is in slope-intercept form. Yes, it is. And so what is my slope? It's always the number in front of the variable. Do not say the slope is x. The slope is 1. And of course you can say 1 over 1 if you wanted to. Either way, the slope is not the variable x. It's the coefficient or the number in front of x. Let's keep going because all the equations won't be in the same order like the x first and the y second. Look at number 3 here. Number 3, I have a y first and an x second. Listen, guys, it doesn't matter. Your whole objective and goal is to isolate the y or get it by itself. And when I look at this, the first thing I'm going to do is add x to both sides. Always remove your addition and subtraction first. And I'm going to say x plus 4 because I always want my x first. Then I divide everything by 2. And that cancels out, and you're left with y equals x over 2 plus 2. Now, a lot of people get confused on this when I ask what the slope is, because this is not your answer if I'm asking you for the slope. Some people say the slope is 2. Some people say the slope is x over 2. Remember, in front of every variable, there's a 1. The slope here is simply 1/2. Try number 4 yourself. Pause this video. I'm going to pause it here and then magically give you the answer. 3, 2, 1. Okay, here's the answer. Notice what happened here. First of all, you have to stop and notice what's happening in your equation. You just don't start moving things. I noticed that the x is already on the opposite side. What's out of place in this problem is that the number that don't have a variable is on the wrong side. So I had to move it over here, and then I had to divide by 9 in order to get rid of the coefficient in front of the y. And so what I'm trying to get you to understand is don't think that the pattern is always going to be the same on every single problem. Most of them I will give to you. Most of them will have look like standard form, where the x and the y are already together, but most of them won't. I mean, there are some that won't. And so will you be able to think outside the box a little bit and say, well, what's out of order? How do I make this equation look like y equals mx plus b? So this is the third way of finding your slope, which is by using an equation, putting it in slope-intercept form, which is simply y equals mx plus b, and then the number in front of your variable x, or the coefficient of x once it's in slope-intercept form, is your slope. All right, take it easy.